Hey everyone, it's Alan. Welcome to week 2 of the intravenous iron in the IV therapy clinic quality improvement project, reality television, so to speak. So it's been a fairly busy week, 2 weeks actually, as I was just on clinical service, and anyone who's been on general medicine CTU knows stuff tends to grind to a halt when you're on service, and so I wasn't able to post a video until now. But now that I'm off service, we will keep those videos coming. But we were able to make some progress on the project, and when I say we, I would like to welcome Simone and Safura, a GIM fellow and core internal medicine resident, respectively, to the project, as they have expressed interest in this project and in QI in general, and they're now working with me on this project. So welcome, and it's great to have you aboard and be working with you. So a lot of the progress this week is a direct result of these two great residents joining the project. And so the first thing that we were able to do is interview some of the providers to try and find out, why would you order iron sucrose over iron dextran? And we found some very interesting general responses. So there's a lot of still misinformation about iron sucrose versus iron dextran. I think a lot of people have the impression that iron sucrose has fewer side effects than iron dextran, and that's actually incorrect. And a paper out of London Health Sciences Centre, out of all places, published by my colleagues, found that there was actually more reactions with IV iron sucrose than dextran. Furthermore, there was a understanding or a impression that to give iron dextran requires a test dose, and so a lot of physicians were really not able to be present for the test dose, and so this was a barrier to ordering iron dextran over iron sucrose. But this policy is actually an old one and is no longer in effect. So clearly, making people aware of the new policies and a bit of an educational piece are going to be very necessary. We also found some interesting responses, like the lab had actually called some of our providers and suggested iron sucrose over iron dextran. So there are some external influences that are also playing a role in increasing the amount of sucrose that's being ordered. So in addition to interviewing some of the providers, just very informally, we also were able to meet with one of our main stakeholders, which was pharmacy. So it turns out that pharmacy has been pushing iron dextran as the iron of choice at London Health Sciences Centre for several years now. So it's supposed to be our iron of choice, and that's our policy. There's actually a policy in place that says you can only get iron sucrose if you've tried iron dextran. But here's the rub: that policy is not enforced. So we're able to just click through an order of iron sucrose freely and have that order be carried out. So it's really not clear why that happens. And so that was an interesting finding. And we presented our findings from last week to our pharmacy director, and she's very interested in being a champion for us and having us present our findings at the next Drugs and Therapeutics Committee meeting in order to find out, what can we do about this so that we are not needlessly wasting resources. So that was very interesting, and it turns out that someone from the pharmacy department has actually already done a review and synthesis of the literature that showed, bottom line, that there's no difference really between iron dextran and iron sucrose in terms of patient safety and adverse reactions. So Simone, our other fellow that's working with us, was able to do a literature review herself as well and concluded the exact same thing. So there are no significant differences between iron dextran and iron sucrose in terms of adverse events and patient safety. So all in all, what that tells us is that we are on very firm ground with respect to addressing this problem. So some of the common counter arguments that we're anticipating receiving to the switch from sucrose to dextran do not actually bear out in institutional experience or in the literature as a whole. So we can make a quite strong justification for making iron dextran our iron of choice. And in fact, we already have it as our iron of choice. It's just not being enforced. So really our next steps are to create a real burning platform. So make sure that everyone who would be interested in knowing the magnitude of this problem knows it. So just off the top of my head, and I mentioned this last week, but we've not been able to reach these people yet. Our directors of medicine, the people who run our outpatient clinics, the emerge administrative staff, and leadership, they would really like to know that potentially we are using these resources unwisely. And so our next steps this week will be to touch base with those people and make sure that they're aware of the data that we've collected and to bring them onto our side, so to speak, as project champions. And so that will be our goal for this week. And we will also need to touch base with the frontliners, so the IV therapy nurses who are actually administering this intravenous iron, to find out, what is the process of ordering intravenous iron, and what is it at the front line that we can do to influence people to choose dextran over sucrose. So we were going to do a very deep dive into the granularity of the ordering process and the IV iron administration process, and we will report back next week. So until then, it's a pleasure. See you next week for video number 3. Peace.